Ruler School is brought to you by Odyssey Games, where you can go to pre-order upcoming Force of Will sets, ccgprime.com for singles and supplies, cardodoko.com for those rulers in the international market looking for product, the Ruler School Circuit Series now offering our Quarter 2 2024 circuit kits, and our guest lecturer members, Fight Ramen. Class is in session. That's the beginning.
I think that's literally when I started.
Hey there, rulers! Welcome back after a long week of Force of Will and your phone blowing up, if you're me, to Office Hours, your favorite ever live Force of Will podcast featuring DMO73, and I'm joined, as always, by Paul Reisman.
I'm still here.
He's still here, and Mike
Still here.
Rants. This time with good internet.
I think I might not have. I've got some decent. Okay, you had to say that.
Yeah.
The moment you said it, you went, and with good internet. So here's hoping.
I've cursed the world. We are here tonight to talk about all
Pray
kinds
for
of
me,
things. Do
everyone.
want to say thank you to Azure Spirit for renewing your membership there as a support staff. Thank you so much. If you like what we're doing, want to consider supporting the channel, you can click that join button just like Azure Spirit did to join the channel as a member, get access to all kinds of cool emotes, and support us to help us do all kinds of cool things. And we appreciate you. So, hey guys, new patch notes just went live. We should read them.
Oh.
So today we're going to be talking
Oh
about
my god, Blizzard put out Force of Will 2.
yeah, we're going to be talking about the ban list, the combination ban list, the unban list, and this new concept of the reworking protocol, and our thoughts about that and the community discourse, which is why my phone has been exploding. It's really nice to be back in my This Is Fine fiery house. It had been a while since I've been there. It was nice to be back, and by that I mean I hated every minute of it. Anyway, so let's talk about the ban list. Yay! So we're going to start talking about it. First off on the Magic ban list is Magic Stone Dance of Chaos. They did explain that they wanted this to use it mainly with resonance decks, but it quickly got out of hand and turned into pseudo ramp thanks to Magic Stone of Wolf's Night. And other also not just Magic Stone of Wolf Knight, things like Heavenly Magic to recover all those stones that just came into play, recovered. Like, just we opened the floodgates with that card, and
we had basically the equivalent of Primeval Titan, Amulet of Vigor in a combo deck in person.
Yeah, yeah. This card was,
man, come on.
This card was one of the things where, with the other cards that we're about to see hit, if this hadn't been hit, it would become the deck to beat of the environment in a really toxic way. So I'm kind of glad to see this one get hit. Definitely deserves to get hit. As sad as it is to see a card in Pilgrim Memories get the axe, the card kind of came off the ban list just for Pilgrim Memories, so it's like, it didn't get much time left. It's fine. Send it back to where it belonged. It's okay. So next up, Conflict. Conflict is gone. We all wanted Conflict gone. It's great to see. And they did talk about this
Felicia.
They did talk about how they intended it to be defensive, but it started to become offensive, similarly to how we've seen with things like Angelic Battle Barrier. It was meant to kind of stop these aggressive decks, but instead just was used by the aggressive decks to protect themselves. And so that they're going back to kind of re-look at that a little bit moving forward to make it so it's just defensive. Things like Cursed Mirror of the Snake, which is pretty good defensive tool. So good stuff there.
Caused a lot of conflicts.
Did cause a lot of conflicts. Fairy of Solaris Sire and Ethereal of Solaris Sire, the infinite life gain and infinite life loss sack outlets. Yeah, good. I'm glad to see these go.
Bye.
They did talk about how they want combos to exist, but they don't want they want to have, like, they want combo to be something that you have to work for, not just incidental, oops, I have combo, while you're already doing other things. And Fairy and Ethereal quickly became these, like, oh, I just combo off now. Myself included. I just randomly, in a Grim deck, put in 2 Aslans and an Ethereal Solaris Sire, and in my back pocket sometimes just went, oh, you're tapped out, you're just dead. Like, I wasn't trying to combo off here, but I just can, so you're dying.
But hear me out. Like, oops, you're dead.
Exactly. So, I mean, I totally support these hits. I think these are fine. I think they're appropriate. They just kind of quickly got out of control.
Cannon Soldier was a mistake.
Isn't Cannon Soldier back at Yu-Gi-Oh now? Just with Catapult
it's
Turtle.
Only been legal in the TCG, but it's never been available in the OCG after like a certain point.
Sure. And let's see, Welser, Typhon, and Killua got full axes. Killua makes sense for the full axe. We've talked about that before. We've tried multiple things, and they just decided, no, we're just gonna get rid of her. It's fine. I think the Typhon is then kind of a good second choice there to hit with Killua, because with the inclusion and creation of Mirror, with some of these other things that have been hit, with the other Hydria, Muse Spirit, that kind of stuff, and then with the removal of Fossil Girl, I think Typhon would start winning matches in this environment by existing. I legitimately think that in an environment where your most explosive strats have a lot more things that gate check them and consistently are able to gate check them, Typhon will sit down across from decks in the meta and go, I have 150,000 life. Or I have 15,000 life. Can you answer this? And some decks are just going to go, I cannot possibly put that much damage into the game. So you win. Right? That's not a healthy game state to manage. So I think Typhon's just kind of worth hitting in that.
Really never been healthy for this game. I'm just going to throw that out there. I'm so happy to see him gone. That's just a personal opinion from me.
Roderick, I'm happy for you, friend. I think overall for meta health and impact and player enjoyment in this game, it's better to just get this big old dragon out the board. Send him out back to go fight Zeus in the ban list on the Typhonamaki forever. And then Welser's one of those things where, very similarly to Magic Stone Dance of Chaos, you just kind of discover things that break him wide open. As currently the most common one is, Welser Matchsticks is still putting up success. I mean, JPK, Jean-Paul Klinsworth over in Germany took 9th. I believe it was 9th, like bubbled out with Welser Matchsticks even in this environment. So it's just one of those things about like, it's just going to be a problem. The longer he sticks around, more cards are going to come out. So it's worth kind of giving him the axe. And then,
brings to the point. Yeah, they had too many hits on the combination ban list, so they just need to go and get reworked.
I've said this so many times. If something has more than like 2 or 3 bans on that combination ban list, clearly that ruler is the problem. Thank you.
Oh, you're talking about specifically if a ruler has more than 2 combination bans.
Oh, yeah,
for sure.
100%.
Yeah, for sure.
No, this is validating for me, personally speaking. I feel very good.
Yeah. And then next up we have Ainz and Lord of Solaris, and these are hits that are more for continuity's sake. And honestly, the Arc one kind of makes sense for consistency's sake because of the Gruus Ballesta hit, like the weird wording of the replacing the call stone, so technically you can get all of your stones super early, even though none of us have ever ruled it that way. So like that makes sense. The Ainz hit doesn't feel like it was necessary. Like they use Ainz as the fact of like we overhit him. We want him to be popular and be playable, but we overhit him. So now we're gonna kind of put him back in the shed and give him a new version. It's one of those things from like, I don't really know if we need to actually ban him to be able to do that rework. But I also am like, but I didn't see anyone playing Ainz anyway. So like, does it impact me? No. Do I think it was?
Doesn't impact anyone.
Do I think this was necessary? No. But sure, fine. You know what I mean? It's just kind of like, I'm trying to think of a good analogy or similar situation from our previous card game experience, Paul, where it's just like they make a decision and it impacts no one, and they didn't have to do it that way, but it's like not necessarily bad because it didn't actually impact anyone. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, it's so for current Yu-Gi-Oh players, one of the weirder things that's happened in the OCG is a card that everyone's playing, but nobody's playing it at 3.
oh yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
Konami was like, "Hey, we're gonna semi-limit this," and
So
it's
you
like,
could only play 2 copies, but no one was actually playing more than 2 copies. So it's like,
yeah, it's like, okay, sure.
sure, you know what I mean?
I don't know why
Nah.
you did this, but okay.
Yeah, it's the same kind of intent here. It's just kind of like, did you actually need to ban Ainz to put him into the rework protocol lineup? No, but like whatever. Okay, sure.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, that makes it's super weird. Let's ban this card for expanded. We're not. No one plays expanded.
Yeah, that's a fair point. That's a fair point, Roderick. Yeah. So, I
It's
mean, the
a good
arc
one.
the arc one makes sense, although it makes sense only in the sense that the Gruus Ballesta and Ainz or Gruus Ballesta and arc could have been clarified by a formal ruling that just said you can only do this once per turn. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
right? You don't have to ban them and rework them. You could just do this. But I mean, I get it. Like, it's fine.
Yeah. The more rules you can put on the card, the more the card can explain itself.
Yeah.
So that's helpful.
Cheshire Cat. Now we move on to the combo bands. Cheshire Cat, the Grinning Remnant, and Crimson Moon's Fairy Tale. This, as a Grim player, this makes sense. This is the hit that honestly makes sense, especially with the CR update, which we'll talk about in a moment as well here. So this essentially is saying, like, pick infinite blockers or infinite life, not both. And I think that's a fair choice to make Grim make. You know, like, because I truly would win some matches by just going like, you're never going to be able to attack me, and when you do attack me, it doesn't matter. Like, if you go watch my gameplay, the gameplay over on CCG Prime's Twitch channel from Dan's 500 cash event that we played, you can watch my end match against Jordan. And there was a turn where I just let all of his swings happen because I was already at like 9,000 life. And I was like, there's just no point in even blocking you.
Mm-hmm.
I could block you with these Cheshires that you can't kill, but also, it doesn't matter. Like, so making Grim have to choose is fine. And also, conveniently enough, they've printed a card already that just replaces Contract. You should play pop-ups instead. And it plays into Cheshire Cat because the Cheshire Cats will keep dying, thus being destroyed, thus triggering things for pop-up. Like, we have a replacement for this in the Grim deck. That's fine. We just can't have everything, which I think is fair. So,
Yeah, my Olivia deck thanks you, because that is the only reason I was not taking games off Grim in the Circuit Series.
yeah.
It's a little unfortunate.
Yeah. And then the other thing, too, here that's important to note is I have heard talks, and I've been the person who's been talked to about the idea of, like, Cheshire Cat with Tinkerbell. Well, they fixed that with the CR update. Cheshire Cat got a nerf buff via the CR update. Specifically, the CR now says... the CR specifically says that stacking a reso on top of another reso no longer counts as putting that resonator into the field. You're purely just like transforming the resonator that's already on the field. So that means that Cheshire Cat's nerf is that it no longer triggers Tinkerbell, but the buff is that it dodges Muse Spirit. And it dodges Muse Staring At. Because it's not being put into the field. It's just evolving the Cheshire. So giving Grim a tool that lets it dodge Spirit of the Ruins and Muse Staring At, I'll give up Contract to do that. That's fine. I'm okay with that. So, yeah. Next up, we have Friend from Another World Kaguya, Kaguya the Moonlit Savior, Magic Stone of Wolf Knight. They don't want you calling stone and drawing cards just for calling stone. Crazy.
Good. That deck's dead now. I'm glad.
Yeah, that deck is like the hyper combo K3 deck is like super dead too, especially because they also got rid of Magic Stone Dance.
Bye.
But this is a very clearly unintentional like thing, so it's fine. I'm okay with this being X'd.
Yeah. I'm a little sad just because this ruler literally got no value when it was printed because it was so early in the game they hadn't tweaked it to the point they did now.
Right.
And then it just thought like, oh hey, it's back. And it's actually good. Weird.
And then
And now it's like gone. So I'm just a little sad.
it had its time and now it's gone, and that's okay. This is one of those things to me that like is also a hit of like if we I'm gonna say this is gonna seem weird, and this might be people are like, oh, Jeremy's just too positive, blah, blah, blah. This list does feel very thought out in the terms of if we ban the problems, what are the things that will rise up, and are those also problems, right? And so the idea of like this hit and like the Typhon hit kind of feel like the same kind of thing, right? It's like same with the Welser hit. It's like with the stuff that we're hitting, these things would be raised up and they might be a little bit better than what we want them to be. So that's okay. So that's fine. She still has Fleeting Moonjewel. That's true. She does have access to Fleeting Moonjewel because she's a Kaguya ruler. So that's important to note. She still has tools. And then let's see. I think was there something else I wanted to say about this with the ban list being the most like mindful. And I know what people are going to say about this conversation. We're going to talk about Heavenly Magic because it's not on this list, and I'm going to talk about that before we get into the unbans. As like, oh, with this list, Heavenly Magic is the best. I think you're incorrect if that's your sentiment, but we'll share my thoughts about that for sure. Feel free to speak up in the chat if you disagree with me. I'm ready to fight. Next up, we have.
Oh, God.
Jeremy said, "Boost that YouTube algorithm."
We're
Jeremy is ready to discuss with confidence.
Yeah, I have significant confidence about Gates.
And not put you into the ground.
Reflect, Refrain, plus Protuberance, the Solarized Whip. This is a silly little just like FTK because it's technically a fire regalia, so this can like be because with Reflect. It like produces red whenever a fire regalia enters the field. So there's this weird like FTK Brandheart with extra steps deck that you can play with this list, and they don't want you to be able to do that, which I think is fair. I don't really know if this was
like they found this.
Well, the fact that they found this is weird, but also I will say that like there was that one ruler school circuit event where someone piloted this to a first place finish and didn't drop a game.
Oh.
So like it's not like it was completely unheard of, but it was weird that it was like.
It looks like a pile until you realize this interaction happened.
Yeah, for sure. And then next up we have Mirror of Chaos with Resonance Guardian of Pandora. Hey guys, if you want to play Pandora, play Girl in the Box. Don't play Infinite Electras. That's what this statement is saying. Like, stop trying to Infinite Electra people.
Stop trying to make Infinite Electra. Infinite Electra is not a thing.
I also think that this is very interesting because this plus the ethereal loops, as far as I am aware, is the first like are the only in the current format instant speed combo loops that existed in the previous format, which I think is piece of it. And there was also a world where Mirror of Chaos could allow you to have an unchaseable infinite loop because you could set it up with the relic that says like your opponent can't chase weapons you control. So then you would like cheat in at that and then play a weapon and then combo off because you weren't locked out of being able to chase stuff, but your opponent was. So you just created this like weird uninteractive I just kill you loop. But it can't be done without Resonance Guardian of Pandora. So like stop trying to infinite people, start trying to Girl in the Box people. Instead of infiniting people, alt win con people. That's what they're trying to say with this, and I'm okay with that.
Wild
Open
concept.
boxes.
Yeah, Relic Arsenal, you hold priority on the cast and then combo off. Yep. Okay. So that's the end of the list. The only unbans are the bans that have been the errata, which we'll talk about in a minute. But I did say that I would be prepared to fight about Heavenly Magic. So I want to talk about it. Do I think that they could have done something to Heavenly Magic with this list, and it would have been appreciated? Yes. Do I think that it was necessary to have a healthy environment? No. That's
You better be ready to back that
I
up.
am ready to back it up. So I'd like to introduce you to quite a few things about Heavenly Magic. First off, Heavenly Magic decks cannot protect their early game plan anymore because they have to play they can't play conflict. So everything that they want to do to be able to start setting up actual good play lines is mained timing early turns. So, that being said, it requires them to most of the time tap out so they can't protect it in a world with Mirror and Muse Spirit. Crazy how that works. Also, Misty Dragon Statue immediately kills Shahryar in every water deck. You know that Gates is bad if you don't have a Resonator to target to be able to try to recover your stones? That's why they were all playing Sherry, so that they had Shahryar at the beginning of the game. Every water deck can kill Shahryar instantly. So that automatically takes the early pressure of the deck's ability to set up combo off the table, and it can't protect it. That's the first part. Secondly, good luck trying to resolve that card because of Mirror, or again, Spirit, to be able to cheat in your thing without having it be expelled. Also, good luck trying to resolve Heavenly Magic. The second that card, you show your opponent you're a Sherry deck, you play a Gates, all 4 of their mirrors just became Heavenly Magic is never going to resolve dot card. If Heavenly Magic never resolves because Mirror will expel it, that card's bad in the matchup. Crazy. And you also can't protect, because you're playing Sherry, you can't use a cheap Mirror. Right? So that's the thing. They don't have judgment. Water rulers, order decks and contract water decks can. Sure. Fine. Show me an order deck or a contract water deck currently in the environment. Anyway, yeah, this is very true. Your matchup against Gate would have been practically free if you had starter cards and if conflict was banned. Yeah, 100%. They can't protect the setup early. They have to do main phase timing setups. Heavenly Magic will never resolve, and when I actually stop it, it gets expelled. The problem with Heavenly Magic at time of printing was even if I cancel it, it goes to your graveyard, and then you can use it later to recover your stones. Mirror says expel that. So now, if I win the cancel war against it, you lose. You don't get that card anymore. Right? Setting the stage for recovery, but fight over that, and then Heavenly Magic in the main. Sure. You gotta fight it, but that also slows that deck down, right? I'm not saying the deck is suddenly unplayable. I'm just saying the deck, in my opinion, is not a concern. Fair? It's allowed to exist in the environment. Third. Third is, Vacus exists. And that card just expels every single copy of your Gate from the game. So then your stat neg is kind of mid at best. And you don't get the stat negs at all, which also is one of the things that we saw in Minnesota, that if decks can get under the stat neg or the stat neg kit gets set up, that Gates gets pressured out of the game early and struggles the shit out of being able to keep itself safe. And by the way, it also lost conflict. So again, its early game is a lot weaker. Lot slower. Hydrea also slows it down, and they don't really have much there to be able to mess with it. All of that stuff. So with that all in mind, I think I would put a Gates deck squarely in the strong but fair category as a green control deck, which to me means I don't need to worry about putting it onto the ban list. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. That's my piece.
My piece is you ban Gates and Heavenly Magic to rework them and re-release them with the singular card text. You can only include this card in your deck if one of your starting rulers is true Little Red.
I just think I'm at a point where I don't even know if that would be needed to keep it in a fair realm.
It's not even from a gameplay perspective, like needing like in the sense of the cards are so powerful they just need to be reworked and rebound. It's more just like that text should have always been on there anyway.
And I think that's a fair
And
counterpoint.
we all kind of
Yeah.
said that when it was released. It was
I
like
think it's
this,
a fair
this card
counterpoint.
should be designed with this ruler in mind. Because right now, Gates and Heavenly Magic is slot this into any green Grim deck, and it makes sense. And I don't think that was the intention.
Sure.
So that's the only argument I can see of like actually banning it. It's just putting it through
Sure.
the protocol.
I will say, though, that in walking into this next environment, since we lost Killua and we lost Conflict, outside of Gates decks and like exactly Reflect Refrain, I don't actually know if a green control deck exists in the environment without Gates. I know that some people are talking about Yokoshima maybe as like the next green control ruler, but like with losing Welser, with losing Conflict, I don't know of a world where there is a green control deck that's not Gates. But I also think the presence of a green control deck should exist in an environment to give that option to players, right?
Yeah, I guess for me it's like, what discourages that by putting it through the protocol?
Sure. I think the intent of the protocol. I think the intent of the protocol is to specifically take cards that were banned for being too good and find a way to re-release them. Whereas opposed to, I think this current environment puts the Gates in a place where it is not so powerful that it would need to eat a ban and thus not need to go through the protocol. Right? Which we can talk about that in a little bit.
Sure.
Yeah, not
for
broken
me,
green
it's a
deck.
precedent thing.
Robert.
It's not a power thing.
Sure.
But I mean, yeah, we also have elves. Elves is very much a control deck.
I think if that's the line of thinking for Heavenly Magic, then uncombo Atomic Turbulence and Atomic Bahamut. I don't see the comparison. Other than
walk us through that.
other than
I'm not
like
entirely sure I understand that either.
But the intent is to let stuff stay just because it's not an issue this format. Why did Chesh plus Contract get hit? Because I think Chesh plus Contract was something that would still create unwinnable board states just because of the sheer amount of life that deck generates by like playing the game.
I see what you're saying. Okay. So because one good
Oh,
one
no,
drop
so,
card can
yeah,
be
so
banned by
I
mirror,
would
why
say-
not unban other good cards.
I would say that my answer is not necessarily that the deck can play in a World of Spirit. I just talked about how the CR makes it so that you can reanimate Cheshire Cat through Spirit. The CR update specifically makes it so that Grim can play through in a World of Spirit. And Big Cheshire Cat is a 5/7 with Barrier that can then kill your Spirit. Like, I think it's fine. And all of the Cheshire Cat reanimates are Maze. So you don't have to reanimate them if there's a Spirit on board.
Talk to me how my errata to Heavenly Magic and Gates is a bad errata.
I want to go back to, while Steven types that out, I do want to talk about Roderick's point here.
Yeah, you do that.
I don't think my argument to Heavenly Magic is not that the deck can be answered and thus should be worthy of not eating a ban. I think that it is the fact that the deck entity that Heavenly Magic was being played with, the concept of that deck, because of the other things that have been hit in the environment, is something that is structurally, as a full package, significantly more fair and in tune with the play concept and style that Force of Will is trying to create in the current environment. So it's not that there are better answers to gates. I just think it's that the play lines and structure of gates under current ban list is such that it is a more fair deck to play against, and as such is fine. Does that make sense? Is my definition, is my kind of switch there? And we can have differing opinions. That's fine. I like when the chat is there, but I just wanted to clarify what I mean by that.
I think the nuance is so subtle, even I was lost. So you're saying that you're saying that Mirror can exist in the current format with
Heavenly Gate, Heavenly Magic.
You're saying Heavenly Magic can exist because Mirror exists in this current format.
No.
But
what I am saying.
Okay, I'm trying
Yeah,
to.
yeah. No, that's fair. So
makes sense.
The concept of Heavenly Magic, the concept of the Heavenly Magic decks, was a combination of early lockout, supported by strong protection to be able to commit to that early lockout, followed by gameplay aspects that prevented your opponent from playing the game while providing you reload. Now, the early commitment pressure to try to lock aggressive strategies out of the game and keep myself refreshed is inherently weaker and more vulnerable because I've lost conflict. So I can't safely try to set up those early protection elements. And as such, I have to play a little bit smarter, a little bit slower to be able to react more as opposed to being the pressure pieces. And then when you combine that with the fact that Heavenly Magic itself is not going to be nearly as consistent of a reload tool, means that the deck has to functionally shift how it's playing to be more in line with a fair interactive back and forth, and as such is fine to exist in the current environment. I would compare that, so like it's like gameplay feel and legitimacy of strategies with the other things that have been hit have shifted. Whereas Atomic Turbulence from Atomic Bahamut is just, I'm going to try to stop you from playing the game, and when that works, you die. Right? And sure, there's answers to those things.
They're fundamentally different cards and thus fundamentally different strategies.
Right.
Okay.
And I would also say that, like, the shift, the overall meta, the overall ban list's impact on the Gates deck is such that the deck cannot play the same way and has to play a more fair game to be able to be successful. It cannot just brute force the openers that were keeping other decks at bay because of the loss of conflict. So yes, Heavenly Magic is a strong card, but the deck can't just brute force its way to a spot where Heavenly Magic is just always going to be good. Like, Heavenly Magic in this past format, like, was always getting to a point of being good. But without conflict and with ways to mess with Shahariar, without ways to be able to protect itself early, there are going to be games where Heavenly Magic just never gets to be good. Right? Whereas at any point in the time, an Atomic Turbulence can just be good, like from the onset. And if it's good, you die when I also have Atomic Turbulence, right? Is my thought process.
Roderick, if you have other examples, feel free to list them. And if we have time, I bet we can come back to them. But we still have to get back to the all of the cards coming off the ban list.
Yeah. So,
Sure.
No, but this is great discussion. Roderick, I thank you for bringing it up, for
really
sure.
good.
I think what aspects it makes it more fair now? Does it differ from the, also no, it's not the only comparison you can make, but the one that comes to mind. Well, that makes sense. Yeah, Heavenly can exist because the deck looks completely different after the other hits and thus becomes a much more fair deck. So also thank you, Mega Drybone, for the super chat. We're keeping it up. We're talking it out. Greg Newman, let us know if you have a place that we can help to try to get you plugged in. Join the Discord servers, all that kind of stuff. And also the OLS, Cal's OLS. if someone can post that Discord in the chat as well. Every Friday, it's a free way to play online. Would love to have you be a part of that. Okay. So that's my thoughts on Heavenly Magic. It was quite a discussion.
Very confusing. Very in-depth.
I've had this conversation many a time, so that's why it felt like I was ready to fight over that. But it was a good discussion, I think. Roderick, thank you for challenging my premise. I appreciate the different perspectives. We can all learn from it and have a good discourse. And Paul, thank you for pointing out how I didn't make any fucking sense, so that I could try to explain myself a little bit better. And Mike, hey, Mike, thanks for being pretty.
That's all I got at this point, because I don't know anything about these combo decks, because I don't play Force of Will as competitively as I used to.
Yay! Okay, so let's talk about...
Everyone thinks Mike is pretty. Kiki's in the
Kiki's
chat.
in the chat. Can we get some Kikis in the chat?
In the chat, pretty Mike.
Cars are prettier. Shayla's in the chat.
So let's talk about the unbanned list.
Good.
Let's talk about the unbanned list. The unbanned list is specifically the cards that are in the Memoria pack, the errata cards, Warhorse and Great Wall. And we'll talk about the reworking protocol here in a minute and then kind of go back through these examples. So Warhorse and Great Wall, very much more in line with being a 12 Sacred Knight deck, and we already knew that there's a new 12 Sacred Knight Aristella coming out later this year. Severing Winds and Demonic Dead. Demonic Dead itself we'll talk a little bit more about. Severing Winds to bring it much more in line with being a Wanderer Ruler support card, and also a much more fair Wanderer Ruler support card in general, with its new change to only working on the third card and never actually being free unless you're a Wanderer. Sealed One-Eyed and Engineer of Eternal, getting rid of that mastery element, and Sealed One-Eyed actually now has a significant higher cost, but Sealed One-Eyed significantly playable in the current environment, especially with Gantinia and some other stuff with like Zhuge Liang. Nihilist and Feasting, getting erratas to be a lot more fair and a lot more dependent on your opponent, your partner J Ruler being flipped, not just raw value at the start of the game every single time. And then Carlina being gosh darn unplayable for reasons that we'll talk about in a minute. So those have been changed. Now you will notice that there is this RWP quarter 2, quarter 4, 2024, or quarter 3, quarter 4, 2024 thing on a lot of this list. Specifically, a lot of the cards that we just saw, and some of the cards that just got banned. So, what is the RWP? The Reworking Protocol is this idea of taking cards that have been previously banned on the ban list, providing them with a rework, an errata, alongside of new support and synergistic cards to re-release them into the environment in a way that is significantly more fair and more fleshed out, and get them off the ban list. This will be done through Masterpiece collections, the new ABC starter decks, new sets, everything else. That's the idea. That's the concept. The new and updated abilities, starting the third quarter of 2024, all of these things. For example, Carlina will have new support that she would be able to use even with the new restrictions. You'll have to wait and see, but not long. They already kind of started some of this reworking protocol with things like Sealed One-Eyed Dragon. It's a good example, I think, of the reworking protocol. Nihilist and Feasting, good examples of the reworking. Still in Trinity Cluster, the new ABC starter decks in Masterpiece 2 something. So I'm going to give my initial thoughts on the idea of the reworking protocol, while I also recognize that we have understood the community's response to it. So I'm going to go first. I'm going to let Paul go first. Next, I'm going to go Mike talk, and I'm going to kind of have a conversation with the chat. I think that this is an interesting idea, an interesting application, given how Force of Will has done product releases with the Memoria collection. I think it's an interesting idea of a way to utilize those bonus box topper packs as a means to address the ban list. That being said, a major part of this execution, I think I see two pieces of complaint that I hear more often than not. One is that acquisition of these new erratas is vital. How are we going to get these is a big, critique, concern, which I think is valid. You want to be able to use these cards And I think the company definitely needs to at least maintain a balance or maintain an element on their website of where all the erratas are as well. But in general, making things easier to get. For instance, these box toppers having one of each errata in them. I think that should be doubled. I think we should have 2 of each in every box just to make it so these things are friggin' everywhere. And include them in pre-release kits. Like, just make them everywhere. I think there's a way to apply that, and that could be done. So, that being said, the second one that I piece is why are we errataing these cards as opposed to just printing new cards that have, the effects that you're trying to go for? I hear that too. I hear that idea as being something that you could work on. But I will also say that a major voiced frustration of the community is that the ban list is big and complicated. So this is like a double, 2 birds with 1 stone, where they're trying to get cards off of the ban list, but also using it as an opportunity to develop new support as like an additional way to continue to flesh out the game and make the ban list more easy. Like, it's kind of a multi-purpose thing, which I think is an interesting idea. I will say that Force of Will is not the first company to do this. Cough, cough, Konami, cough, cough, Necro Valley, 9 erratas that have changed the card functionally that many times. So there's certainly much more like clear about it and more projected about it. And I will say that it is a little bit idea. This, for me, I get the apprehension or frustration seeing how many of these cards have Reworking Protocol next to them. I see that is a lot of cards. And I get the idea of like, can we not just print a bunch of these cards? Why don't we just make new cards? I get it. I think at the end of the day, as long as execution of the erratas is accessible for everybody, that either printing new cards or doing this to clean up the ban list serves the same purpose. And so I get the frustration. I get that there is some apprehension to it, but I find myself in a position of I'm not going to go beyond expressing my concerns and let it color my view until I see application. And that's where I sit with the Reworking Protocol. Those were my initial thoughts. I have some other thoughts about how this whole thing is laid out, but I'll go over that in a second. So I'm going to toss this over to Paul as well.
Sure. There are 3 main things I've been hearing in the community. First of all, that erratas make it discouraging for new players who are looking through old cards, and looking to get into the game, and they find a card that they are like, oh hey, I can't use this card, so this feels bad. Fair enough. I've also heard people talking about how erratas tend to change the core identity of a card and how it functions, and so people don't like that erratas just change the way cards function. And people think that releasing cards from the ban list via errata is kind of a cynical take from the design team's perspective, in the sense that we're just going to errata this thing so we can get it off the ban list, because that's how other card games have done it in people's experiences. And I think a lot of this comes down to how people received Carlina very specifically.
Yeah.
And I think Jeremy's going to get into that, and I'll let him just take over
I'm going to get over into that when we loop back around. Yeah.
Yeah, when we loop back around. So first of all, I'm sympathetic to the people who are worried about new players kind of looking through LGS bulk and saying oh, there's this Warhorse. Why? I can't wait to use this. I can't believe no one's using this card. And then they're told, well, you can't just use it with any deck. You have to use it with a 12 Sacred Knight deck. And how you frame that conversation will determine a lot of how the player reacts, right? Warhorse was incredibly broken, and it warped the meta, and they learned a lesson. So they're making sure that it sticks to the support it was intended for. Goes over a lot better. Yeah, you can't use that anymore because it's, it was too good, and the company, just ratted it and just got it off the ban list, and now it doesn't even work anymore. When you say it like that, it just feels really, really horrible. So I would just encourage you that how you frame this errata for all these different cards um, goes a long way to determining how a player receives that information.
For sure.
Is it ideal? No, but at the same time, the framing does do a lot.
Yeah.
Errata's changing a card's identity. If you look at this, if you look at all of the erratas from Feathsing to Mylus to Engineer of Eternal, Sealed One-Eyed Dragon, Great Wall, Demonic Dead, Severing Winds, Warhorse, which of those cards are fundamentally different than when they were released before? I don't know of any that have been like warped to the point of unrecognizability.
Outside
right?
of being more archetypal in the form of Warhorse and Great Wall,
Yeah.
no. They just made Warhorse and Great Wall more archetypal. But like
Carlina is the one who has been most changed,
which we're gonna talk about. We're gonna talk about it for sure.
But I also think the idea of how other card games have used errata, like Crush Card Virus or Chaos Emperor Dragon, Envoy of the End, being errataed into the dirt and just unplayable. For example, I don't know of any examples of this happening in Magic or in Pokemon, but the idea of companies have used erratas to fundamentally destroy their cards for the sake of cleaning up their own ban list. That has happened, and I want to acknowledge that.
Not even in FOW. That's happened in the big three, right?
Yeah, that's happened in the big three. It's happened in other card games. I'm like guaranteed. And to some degree, we've had struggles with errata in this game's history before too. But I think we might be projecting a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. And I do want to speak to, I want to be very clear as we're having this conversation that we are not trying to dissuade people from expressing, like, straight up. People ask me on the Discord, where can we go to talk about our feelings about this? And I just pointed them straight. I didn't try to tell them no. I just said, go put it on their YouTube videos. You got, like, I would encourage you to, like, think it through and not just be emotionally reactive, like, try to, like, really flush it out, but go talk about it. Like, we're not trying to tell you not to. We're trying to offer the conversation, and we might have a more positive spin on it, which is why I said during my position, I'm in the position of I can express my concerns, I can express some of my worries about it. Now, having done so, I'm in a space of let's wait and see. And that's where I've kind of settled. Right?
Yeah.
Where, I think, Paul, I would say that you're probably in a similar kind of space, but I'm not going to speak for you.
I would say I'm more where the chat is, but I also just want to be clear. We do have problems with the reworking protocol. Like, we do have objections to it, and I will name those. I don't know if Jeremy will.
Yeah,
I will name mine.
Yeah, go for
later.
it. Yeah, for sure. We'll talk about it later.
I'll do it later.
Yeah, for sure.
Like do your Carlina bit.
And I also think that, I think there's a world where part of this, when we talk about execution, right, is like, well, part of it is going to be, let's maintain a list of all the work that's been done. So the company should step up and make a reworking protocol page on their website, right? So that we have all the information readily accessible quickly. Or, like I said, the idea of, if you're going to print these, either slot them into the set as normals so that they're easy to obtain and frickin' everywhere, or double up, the amounts of the pre-release, but the packs that are in. But we'll, I'll speak more to this execution piece in a bit. Mike,
hi.
Let's hear your thoughts on this idea.
Yeah, I'll definitely mirror a lot of what you guys were saying overall. Paul, I definitely want to bring up the Chaos Emperor Dragon Crush Card Virus bit that I think is very apt. Because, okay, so here's my thing with Crush Card and Chaos Emperor, and then likening it to Carlina in a sense. These cards have a significant historical impact on Force of Will. They're cards that are recognizable by the players. They're recognizable from the fact that they broke formats. Like, that's something that's like a legacy to them. It's obviously a little sentimental, but I do think that errata cards, to be different from what they were when they broke the game, is fundamentally a bad player experience, and a bad experience very in particular for the old guard that they've been trying to kind of recapture as they've been coming back. I think that there are a lot of players, like, I want to shout out Greg Newman in the chat, who's been saying, "Hey, awesome, Forcible's going alive and well." Greg used to be a part of my locals. Fucking love that guy. He's great. And I know that, I know he hasn't played in a while. He's got some interest in the game again here. And it's like, oh yeah, a bunch of cards that you used to play with that were, banned at one point are either too slow for the game, like he was talking about Hook being unbanned. We're like, yeah, it's back. It's not doing anything because it's garbage compared to everything else we've had printed over the past couple of years. And then you think about something like Carlina, you think about something about like Severing Winds. Like Severing Winds is iconic. Severing Winds is an iconic card that everybody fucking hates. But they hated it with good reason. And it's something that, in order to preserve the card, I do want to go into this idea. Like, I do think that Roderick and Azure Spirit going into this in the chat, talking about like erratas versus bans. I see both sides. I'm sort of more on the side of like, when you go up to somebody, you're like, hey, that card is errated versus hey, that card was banned. Personally speaking, if you say, hey, that card was banned, they printed X card, which is a toned down version of it. This is the one you can play. Thankfully, it was printed as a common in this set. Here you go, give it a shot. Like, that is like the cleanest play. That's the perfect player experience right there.
Sure.
And again, that kind of harkens back to distribution. And
yeah.
I do think that you guys have both said, print them as normals in a set. Even bring back like packs right now are what, 9, 10 cards right now? 10 cards, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong.
They should be 8.
8. Okay. So if I could just put a. Do you guys remember the old Memoria cards where they had the really ugly borders?
Yeah,
for
sure.
Yeah, they were gross. Like, they were gross, but you could make like a prettier one that specifically has like some cool thing around it that has like RWP along the edges of it or something like that.
Yeah.
Make it aesthetically pleasing to post these, to print these out. You get 1 per pack. You can spoil them with the fucking set spoilers.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, it's like you printed a new card and that takes up none of your head space, none of the card pack space. It's like, what, you get an extra comment slot. Oh, well, big fucking whoop. It's so easy.
And I think, so I would challenge, there's this element of, okay, I want to pose a hypothetical to what I see being thrown a lot, which is this world of the onboarding experience, by reminding people that we are not a big 3 game. Where
onboarding is already a problem.
Well, no. I say that in the perspective of, and I might be, this is me admitting that I might be missing something or naive that this is how it is. And I will fully accept that if this is happening outside of what I am seeing or what I contend to see most often than not, I will be fair and I will concede that point. I do not see new players looking at historically old cards. Like, I even in the Wanderer environment, the idea that, talk about Warhorse, right? I don't see a new player just stumbling across Warhorse because they weren't going to be introduced to that card, right? So the idea of, like, certainly I'm not going to see a brand new player out of the blue pick up an old OG Severing Winds. I just don't see that happening where newer players are finding themselves going that far back into the game's history to acquire cards. So the idea of, with this mindset, again, we talk about the idea of how it's printed, how it's distributed. If that player's onboarding experience is that their first experience with one of these cards that's on the ban list is the errated text, then the capacity for confusion is there. There's a potential for confusion, but the actual application and influence of that confusion is not necessarily as prevalent. It's just something to consider. And I may be wrong. That may be not how it plays out, for sure. But I tend to think that that is, at least from what I've experienced, a possible outcome of this scenario. So, Holstricer makes a good point. Starting as a new player will be rough regardless. So in this sense, there is a world where the eroded Carlina is just Carlina 2. I see that point, that you could have just made Carlina 2 instead of reworking Carlina. I get it. But then this ban list is still confusing as fuck. Right? You can't please everybody. This is him at least trying something. We'll get to my Carlina point in a minute. I will agree that a big portion of this reworking protocol needs to be better intent on R&D so that the reworking protocol doesn't need to be constantly used. Right? That this should be alongside of developmental mindset that makes it so that the reworking protocol is a tool that is available, but is not the main tool with which we use. We design and work hard so that it is not something that we constantly have to be pulling off the shelf. And to that critique, I can totally jive with. Like, that is a valid thing that the company should work on with introducing this. Fair. I'll concede that point. I think it's fine. I agree with you. I think that's intentional. Great. So that's a piece there too. Host, I said new players will learn that Severing Winds has the new text as they open up the pack with the new Severing Winds in it for sure. Roderick, I would point up in the chat to your idea of ban lists are confusing to the fact that there are literally players who are saying in this current chat that they don't play Wanderer because the Wanderer ban list confuses them because it's too big. Just saying. Anyway, make cards with caution, not like a mad scientist. Buying cards that you already tracked down and purchased foils of is terrible. I mean, I get that for sure, but also like you can just play, like for us veteran players, we can just play the old versions. That's fine. But anyway, more emphasis on future proofing. I agree. Rulers, so the sign is they don't use the ban list as a way to sell product like Konami. I agree with that wholeheartedly. That doesn't like it feels like the intent is there. All that being said, let's talk about Carlina. Boy, howdy, do I have thoughts about this.
What did they do to our girl?
I want to give you a tale of 3 examples of the reworking protocol and how each one was interestingly applied and drastically changed people's and probably drastically changed people's opinions of this entire thing. We're going to start with Great Wall and Horse. When these 2 cards were shown off, alongside the announcement of these 2 cards, we were told that there was going to be a new Aristella ruler focused on 12 Sacred Knights. Alongside these cards, we were saying these cards are going to have a place in something coming down the line. So they might not make sense now, but we know that, and more is coming. Great. So these now became spoilers for something that's coming down the line. That's case scenario 1. Case scenario 2. Demonic Dead was less informative, but still not bad, right? This card has an ability called Evil Dead. It's a named ability, subtype named ability. Enforce a will, subtype named abilities usually are very important. So on this article, we had 3 weeks of information where Demonic Dead had this named ability, but we didn't know why, just that it was being brought off the ban list this way. And now in this article, we are being told that this card, the Evil Dead mechanic, is directly tied to a future ruler. So now it was a little bit of a delayed information, but we know that this is a design concept and how it will be applied to future sets and how it will be applied to future supports. And Demonic Dead will be a package. And now I'm excited because I'm like, oh, well, what else will Demonic Dead synergize with? What will this ruler be like? Right? So, Roderick, fair. Not trying to shove you off of it. Fair point to your critique there. 100%. Anyway, so that's 2 applications. Not as good as the Aristella piece, but helpful, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we had Carlina, the worst example. Look at her. She's in my background too, just staring at me. So
These two gentlemen broke Carlina. They're the ones who got it banned.
we did it. Mike and I did it.
Yeah, we did that.
No one's sadder than them.
That's my girl right there. I don't know
So,
what to tell you guys.
So, let's talk about this. When the erratas happened, 2 of the 3 rulers that were errated, feasting in my list, we looked at them and we said, oh yeah, these are erratas that make sense to bring these rulers in line with the concepts of the tag rulers for 6 stages. Made them a lot more fair, made them a lot more make sense, still made them functional. Not necessarily as good, but functional, right? They didn't need any additional support to go along with it to make their erratas make sense. It was, oh, we're just making these more fair. At the time of Carlina's errata release, we did not know that the reworking protocol existed. So what we all saw was a ruler that had been nerfed to shit and unplayable and then brought off the ban list. And that was the only context we had. We just saw Carlina get nerfed the crush card virus effect, essentially. She was nerfed to be this unplayable element, seemingly just to get her off the ban list. And then 3 weeks later, we learn about the reworking protocol where we go, oh, they are designing her additional support to have this ability make sense, but we still have to wait and see what that concept is. Let's talk about how that is, honestly, in my opinion, the biggest flub of this entire announcement and is what is causing the most emotional reaction.
I made a meme about it.
So, anyway, when she was printed, when she was routed, we had, yeah, you've heard no complaints on the my list, right? Yeah, it's fine. So, sorry that you guys got ads here. It just happens. So, Carlina seemingly just got eroded to this unplayable space with no context just to get her off the ban list, which is the exact opposite of what happened with Warhorse and 12 Sacred and Wall. When Warhorse and 12 Sacred and Wall were eroded, we were told these are going to fit into, at the time that they were released, we were told these will fit into a package that is coming later. So we viewed the erratas from the context of, oh, they're reworking 12 Sacred Knights and we'll have something to support it, a ruler to support it later. That becomes, I'm interested, I'm curious to see what comes next. Carlina had no such context. And then we got 3 weeks of silence where we all got to stew in the why would they do this to Carlina if not to just make her awful and take her off the ban list. And then even when the article did come out, all we got was a teaser about the concept of time for a picnic and no other information. I think if Carlina had not been errated at this time, had not been released the errata, but instead had been a surprise errata at the announcement of the reworking protocol and had been also spoiled with some of her concepts for time for a picnic, a shit ton of this response would have been more positive. Because we would have seen the actual application of the concept of the reworking protocol with a ruler. The idea of we will errata and functionally work on updating a ruler along with new support to make them make more sense and play better. In the application of this and the way this was rolled out, we had 0 of that for Carlina in a way that could have been given to us to make her make sense instead of being left in the dark for 3 weeks. That's fair. So
in summation, I think the thing we all agree on is R&D needs some quality control. And I think they're acknowledging that, and they're working towards something better. They've said as much, right? They have vocally said that to the community. We recognize there's a lot of erratas and there's a lot of changes. We're doing a lot of background work to try and make this better. 100% agree. You do, and I think they are. I think releasing cards from the ban list with the intention of giving us new support is what we all want. That's the best case scenario, and we want those cards to be plentiful, right? We want those to be accessible and plentiful so that new players can get them in their hands and play with them and have fun, right? That's what we want. We also all really want the new player experience to be just a good experience so that they want to keep playing the game and the game grows. We all want that.
Yeah.
We might all have different ideas of how to get there with new players. I also will recognize that we don't have any hard data as to like what new players like when they come to this game.
Yeah.
Right? We don't know what they're looking for.
Sure.
Right? We only have our own anecdotal experiences. So I would like to see, if the company has hard data on like what new players like when they come to this game, that'd be very valuable information. And I've said this as much in my own commentary to the company. I worry about the new player hazards that are coming with erratas, and I want players to have these cards. And I think you just need quality control.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to have to remember all of the different wording changes in the middle of a tournament setting. Like that just seems like a lot.
Right.
And I think they get that.
Yeah.
And so I think there is something going on in the background.
I do think I think to your point and what some people are
there's almost guaranteed to be a group of R&D.
There's certainly more so now than there was in the past. But anyway, what I do want to say to like John Clark's point, hear me out, just print a new card that gives the same name for Carlina. I understand. That is also one way that they could have carried this out. Right? For sure. But then they have to get that card in the player's hand somewhere. And again, the ban list stays long. And I think that there has been an intent to try to simplify the ban list here too. So it's one of those ideas of two birds with one stone. And would I have chosen to do it this way versus like print Apollo Sphere 2 Electric Boogaloo? I can't say for sure which one of them would absolutely be the correct way to do it. And so I'm saying I can express and that's why I've reached this point, like I said, if I express my concerns, I am tentative, but now I want to see them apply it. And I'm willing to sit in that waiting and seeing, right? But again, I think it's important to note that I think this also should be a message, and I think I encourage people to say that, let this also be a message to them that to try to turn the reworking protocol into something that is a tool to be used rarely moving forward, and hope that their design space is such that this doesn't become something they have to pull off the shelf very often once they get through this initial wave, right? Because there's very clearly some things on the list that they don't want to take off and some things that they're trying to take off. So, for sure. So,
in terms of the community mouthpiece, I sure wish there was somebody who was asking nice little, question of the days every so often on a semi-regular but not actually regular schedule. Wonder who that could be.
Well, we all know for his privacy, he might need to wear a face mask.
So yeah, I also do really feel vindicated. I also do really feel. I also do feel very enjoy the Kawamoto's the producer. He's the lead producer of the game, Kawamoto-san. I do feel a little bit vindicated that other people are agreeing with me that if they had just timed the Carlina release properly and done that management properly, the response to this would have been a lot more positive. Yeah, because I mean, like if we had seen the errata to Carlina and also, oh, by the way, here's this new concept of time for a picnic and how this is going to play out, then I'd be like, oh, well, cool. Let's do it. But we got Carlina being awful with 3 weeks of no context and then a tease. It's just a little bit unfortunate, and I get why people are frustrated. Isn't implied that the reworking protocol is not going to be used all the time. Conflict and Dance of Chaos didn't have the green quotations. Yeah, exactly. Right. Like, I don't think, like I said, it's very clear that they don't want to use the reworking protocol. So I'd be very curious to see once we get through this first wave of quarter 3, quarter 4, alongside the Masterpiece Collection and everything else, alongside with more intent being put on R&D or development to make sure this doesn't have to get happened, that like the final results of this could be very, very positive, right? It's about application. It's about implementation, which I think is the piece where I'm like, because we don't know and because we have to have implementation, we're in the wait and see phase. And so I think the biggest kind of takeaway is now that we're in the wait and see phase, you can either wait and see from a position of negativity, or you can just be in a wait and see phase and enjoy the game in the meantime.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I'm not going to say like don't hold your critiques and don't be cautious, but I think it's a matter of like, where do you let that caution, how do you let that caution control your relationship with the game? And that's a question that each of us has to answer, and each of us's answer is going to be different, and that's okay. But I think like at the end of the day, that's the question that we all have to face now as we move forward, and what you do with that is up to you. And so that's why I wanted to have this conversation. For me personally, I'm going to freaking go play some Force Will. And I'm going to wait and see what happens.
I am hoping that these here's my hope for this going. If this were 100% ideal and this worked out completely fine for me, it would be that all the rulers come in the Memoria pack, all the reworked rulers come in the Memoria pack, kind of like what we got in this past set. Cards are released in the normal or rare slots as reprints, and there's support for those for those cards in the set that they are being printed in.
Slash the ABC slash the ABC decks to introduce updated Carlina and the Time for a Picnic stuff in a green black ABC deck that's available for everybody, right? Or something like that.
You know what I mean? On top of, Trinity Cluster 2, 3, 4, right? Like just give us the pieces and then reprint the pieces. Yeah, kind of what they did for Masterpiece 1.
And they've announced a Masterpiece 2. Crazy.
It's like weird. Like, they seem to have the capability and the technology.
Masterpiece Rising Revengeance. Let's go.
We get like pre-conned ABC decks for 12 Sacred Knights with all of these reworked cards, and I actually want to play that format.
I do want to say, Zero, just a little note here of these little teases they did throughout this article, made me laugh. Zero will take its revenge on overall Hamat. Zero's a her. But hey, suddenly
hey, you know what? That's inclusive right there.
Feasting and Milas getting some nice support there. Sealed One-Eyed Dragon, Vega and Falchin will have new support, which is awesome. The new Lich King is neat. Lich.
Okay,
but my grants.
So I wanted to talk about this. Okay. So hold on. This demonic dead implication is huge. I know we probably have more to talk about. I know we're over, but I have to talk about this very importantly as clearly the #1 Lich fan of the entire world.
Yeah, for sure, 100%. Yeah. Got it.
Okay, so very importantly, we're getting Lich King Ruler. We're getting Skeleton Zombies. Good, but however, the name of this card. The name of the new mechanic is Evil Dead. So all I want to see is the ruler be literally Bruce Campbell with a cigar in his mouth yelling groovy. That's all I want to see in my entire life. And if I get that, I will be back in this game 100%. I will play competitively again. So, Force of Will, I Spy, you right there. If you print me Ash from Evil Dead, I'm playing again. I'm in. I'm holding.
I think I'm already gonna get you to play again because of the fact that they're releasing a new Lich King.
Okay, so it's Lich King, but it's not Lich yet. I'll wait until some more spoilers.
Yeah, for sure. So, yeah, I mean, I think this has been a good conversation. Like I said, and I appreciate everyone joining in, and I appreciate that people sharing their different perspectives. And I think that there's an element to we at Ruler School. You can, I think even on this podcast, I think it's very, very clear that between the three of us, like, we don't try to stifle the idea of critique or not being necessarily the fans or calling out mistakes, right? That's kind of also partly why I always keep Mike on too, even though his internet disconnects all the time, is because I can understand that Mike, being a little bit more removed from the game, doesn't necessarily, has some nostalgia element, but isn't afraid to call things out and like have the more necessarily nuanced, not gung-ho approach to the perspective, right? Paul is kind of the middleman here too, and then I'm the like super positive voice. But I think we try to make it very clear that we want to have these conversations, and even the positive voice of the group can acknowledge that there is critique and wants to support people to flush that out. I think that there's a piece of why I wanted to talk about this so much is that there's an element of, like Paul said, being to the idea of how you phrase the conversation. There is a way to express and talk about concerns in a constructive way that is driven based on concepts as opposed to driven based on emotional reaction. And that's what I encourage people to sit with before they start engaging in the discourse, because I think that's how meaningful suggestions and meaningful concepts and even better understanding of why something has frustrated you comes to the surface. I told this to Paul earlier today. I came to the realization that the reason why my emotional gut reaction to this was so weird was because of the Carlina thing. And I didn't think about that when I first was presented with the reworking protocol. And then I sat and thought about it, and I was like, oh, my issue isn't necessarily at its core really with the reworking protocol. It's the fact that the presentation of the reworking protocol had this glaring error, right, that could have been done better, and as such made a lot more sense and maybe transition to looking towards the future a little bit more. I want this to be a place where we can have discussion. I want this to be a place where we can kind of call each other out and question and have a good piece, and I feel like we've done that tonight. And so if you're watching, and I hope you enjoyed that conversation as well, I'm happy to continue this discussion down in the comment sections or whatever on our Discord. So check that out. So yeah, that's where it is. So we have one last subject to talk about, that being the CR basic ruling of legality. I don't have to talk about that. I'm sorry, Steven.
This is clearly just a nerf to Steven just won. Like 100% just a nerf to our main man. Now he has to go from Arcana meme lord to
truck.
Truck shill.
Just more truck.
Yeah.
Just more truck.
Can we just get a truck ruler? Can we just get a truck ruler just for him?
Yeah,
I
for
think
sure.
he deserves it.
The next one is that we're gonna combo ban Minha with any singleton ruler. Too strong.
Comp ban Minha with any ruler. He has to play without a ruler.
So yeah, playing nerfs is crazy. So yeah, so that's my perspective overall. That don't do that to me. I don't know if I could keep going. If I'm not allowed to play at least one Gun of Darkness ruler. So I do want to say, just as a reminder, as we close up here, that on June 8th, 2 weekends from now, we will have our Ruler School Discord event for June for the Alice extension rule playmat for this quarter. You should definitely go check that out. You will also earn prize wall points for FowFest in 2025. So just be sure to sign up for that. So check that out. And also on June 22nd, there is the Converging Wills event that's happening. Potentially, it might actually, I think I've heard that it might be changing dates, but as of right now, it's set for June 22nd. If that changes, we'll be sure to let you know.
A lot of people talk about how crazy the prize support is for those Converging Wills.
Converging Wills events are crazy pricing. Like, you should always sign up, even if you just don't intend to play or intend to win. The pricing there is crazy. And then we have the GP later this month or later in June. That's gonna be a lot of fun. And also stay tuned next month for the announcement of the next quarter's circuit kit. And I'm waiting on final approval for the art. And let's say we're going on a trip. We're going on a trip is what we're doing for that playmat artwork. and it's gonna be really good. So stay tuned for that. So thank you all so much for this lovely conversation, this in-depth conversation, for sharing your feedback. It's always great to have these really interactive podcasts. It's why I enjoy this. For that. And then, look in for more. We won't have a feature match this week because we're starting to record for a new format, but we'll have one for next week. I'll see if I can get Bremont to play some the progression series with me this week, and maybe we can get that up. Try to get this up this week too, to get that back online. So thank you all so much for being here. And as always, this has been myself, DMO73, and I've been joined by Paul Reisman.
Still here.
Still here. And Mike Rance.
Still here.
Class dismissed.